Hi everyone, in this video we're going to go over what is Bootstrap and go over any kind of alternatives that is being used today to as opposed to Bootstrap as well. So Bootstrap is a really popular CSS framework and it's used to ensure that the websites you're developing are responsive and mobile friendly. So the newest version of Bootstrap is currently Bootstrap 5, but there have been examples being used before. Bootstrap 5 is the newest version, and Bootstrap 5 supports all major browsers except Internet Explorer and anything below that. So to show you how it works, it uses things like container classes. So the container class is one of the most important Bootstrap classes, and it's what provides the margin, padding, alignments, and more to all the HTML elements. So you can see within this code here, everything is within a class called container. Within the class then is all of the rows and all of the columns, and then within those is where you put the element tags such as heading tags, paragraph tags, things like that. So you can see it's linked here, the Bootstrap CSS, and with using the CSS, so you see this whole container, everything, you've got the row here, and then you've got the column. So you've got the first container, which is this container here. Then you've got the first row, which is this row here. Then you've got the first column, and this is this first column here. So you can see it's a column structure of 4. So you've got the first column with the elements, with the HTML element and the paragraph element here. And you can see that the column is already aligned for you, one by one beside each other instead of it stacking on top of each other. Same with the columns beside it. So you've got this column here and you've got this column here as well. And all of the elements that are within this column stay within this column on the front end as well. And then all of the columns itself are contained within this row. And the row itself is contained within this container. So it's all in one container and everything's organized within the container. And this CSS code up here provides the actual padding, alignments, and a lot more to the HTML elements as well. Containers are really fundamental to building your Bootstrap website. Again, it was previously mentioned, they contain containers, padding, and alignment, and align your content within the actual device viewport and not as a static amount of viewport. And they're a very, very basic layout element in Bootstrap, and they are required when using the Bootstrap grid system. So containers, again, contain the padding. They sometimes center the content within them, and while the containers can be nested, most layouts don't require a nested container. So Bootstrap comes with 3 different containers. There's a doc container, there's a doc container which sets a max width at each responsive breakpoint level. Then there's container fluid, which is a width of 100% at all breakpoints. And then there's container with breakpoint within the curly braces, which is width at 100% until the specified breakpoint. So just to show you how each max width compares to the original container and doc container fluid. You can see the container fluid takes up 100%. Then you've got the actual containers with the breakpoints aligned, and they take up whatever alignment that we've set. So those are the kind of main differences between all the container types. So Bootstrap comes with uses grid layouts to build your Bootstrap grid system, and there's different grid layouts that they have that you can use to kind of organize your content. So, and you can find these on Get Bootstrap documentation. So it's just on this page here. So you can see they've got 5 grid tiers. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can see each of them have a different viewport size. And all you need to do is add these classes into your code editor, and then add the elements within each of these classes, and then the CSS styling will help you kind of organize all of this content using the CSS style rules. So this is three column. This is 3 equal columns. Then you've got 3 equal different alternative to the 3 equal columns. You've got 3 unequal columns. This is using this is a 3 and a 3 and a 6. So this will make the middle column a lot bigger than the beside 2 columns. Then you've got uneven 2 columns, things like that. So you can use these columns basically to kind of organize your content structure as well. It'd be really good for you to kind of get familiar with their basic grid layout so that you can start building within the Bootstrap grid system. So that's what Bootstrap uses to build out their content. So their default container class is responsive, and it's a fixed width container, meaning its max width will change at each breakpoint. And that's this container class here. So you type in div container and then type in whatever content here. That might be h1 element. And any other elements that you kind of want to add. You can add any types of elements as well. If you wanted to add a paragraph. And you can see that the container class gets added, and then what you can do is resize and also auto rotate the screen as well to kind of see what this class is going to look like. So this is their default container, but then they also have, all of the containers are responsive. So responsive containers allow you to specify a class that is 100% wide until the specified breakpoint is reached. After that, you apply the max width attribute for each of the higher breakpoints. So for example, this class here, if we type in container.sm, is 100% until you start to add the SM breakpoint, where it will scale up with MD, LG, XL, and XXL. So the way you would add that is you would add div class equals container SM. So this will be 100% wide until a small breakpoint is reached, basically. Then you can also have container MD. So it's 100% wide until a medium breakpoint is reached. Then you've also got container LG, which is 100% wide until a large breakpoint is reached. And then you've got container XL, which is 100% wide until an extra large breakpoint is reached. And then finally, you've also got XXL, which is 100% wide until an extra large breakpoint is reached. So yeah, you've got different options for the responsive classes, and you've also got a lot to work with as well. They're all fully responsive, so all you need to do is make sure you import the CSS rules here, and then you've got and then just use whatever div classes that you need for that particular bit of content. Another helpful tip is to use container fluid for full width container. That's going to span the entire width of the viewport. So this content here will span the entire width of the content that you add, and that's using the container fluid class. In addition to using Bootstrap here, you can see Bootstrap makes a lot of predefined container classes to help you build the layouts, but you can also customize those container classes by modifying the Sass map, and you can find that in the .css theme file known as variables. So when you find that theme file, all you need to do is look for the CSS that configures the max widths, and it'll look something like this. And then you need to just set your own width class. So they'll come with their own predefined max width, and all you need to do is change these values here if you wanted to use your own variables for the Bootstrap. So in terms of breakpoints are basically customizable width that determines how your responsive layout behaves across each device or each viewport in Bootstrap. So the main concepts are breakpoints are the building blocks of responsive design. So use them whenever your layout can be adapted at a particular viewport or size. Use media queries to make your own CSS by using the breakpoints. So media queries are a rule of CSS that allow you to conditionally apply styles based on a set of browser settings. So things like min width, max width are examples of media queries. So for example, if you were to use min width, so it would be at media, screen, and for example, if we were to use min width at 600 px, and then you type in the actual container or class or identifier that you want to affect at that breakpoint, and then the actual attribute that you want to change. So this rule basically means once the viewport hits a width of 600 and more, then it will follow this rule. So it'll look at this container and change the font size of any text element in this container to 30 pixels. So you can use media queries to change things like font size. You can use media queries to hide things as well. So if you were, for example, change that to the rule to display none, then that will basically, then using this rule, this class, this section that has this class will be hidden on screens that are 600 pixels, 600 pixels wide or more. And you can do the same thing with max width. So max width is the exact same as min width, except the inverse of it. So instead of 600 pixels or more, once this viewport reaches 600 pixels or less, then it will follow these rules. So you need to figure out, do you want to have these rules applied when something is bigger than the screen width or whenever it's smaller than the screen width? So you can use media queries to change the font size. You can use it to hide elements as well. That's a really common use of using it. And a really common use of media queries is to create a flexible layout. So for example, This layout, for example, is a responsive 4-column layout. So you can see this will kind of create 4 equal columns that floats next to each other. So each of the column are given this this class, and each column will follow these rules. So each column will float to the left, will have a width of 25 pixels and a padding of 20 pixels, and then clear the floats after they run the columns. So on screens that are, so this is using the max width attribute. On screens that are 992 pixels or wide or less, they go from 4 columns to 2 columns. So for example, if we use that, so 992, and we're going to move that until we get to 992. So now we've increased it more than 92, so it's going to follow the width of, so it's no longer using the rule of width 50%, it's using the rule of width 25% and puts everything in the column as well. And if it's less than 600, make the columns stack on top of each other. So for smaller screens, they want it to go on top of each other. So we're going to make it less than 600. And you can see everything goes to the left of it as well. So you can resize columns that way as well, to create kind of a bit more flexible layouts to your column structure. What you can also do with media layouts is change, for example, background colors, as we said before. So if the screens are 600 pixels or wider, we can also hide certain columns as well. We can ease this to, say, display none. And that'll hide the column as well in 600, screen 600 or more. So you can see that media queries are used to kind of create different kinds of layouts as well, and make your layout more responsive as well to the device point that's being used. You can also use breakpoints in a way that shows between. So for example, if you use this rule here, so this rule here will basically apply all the rules that we add here, whatever that may be. So we'll say font size here, 25 pixels. So this means then this will only follow the rule of changing the font size of the class to 25px if the minimum width of the screen is 768 and if the maximum width of the screen is 1199. So it's in between these two breakpoints. So you can use breakpoints in that way as well to kind of set a between rule as well if it's in between two different types of breakpoints if that's ever needed. So another important thing that you might have noticed about grid layouts is about Bootstrap is that they use the column class as well. So you can use Bootstrap to modify columns with a handful of options for alignment, ordering, offsetting, again, thanks to their grid system. So the way they work is columns build on the flexbox structure, meaning you have options for changing individual columns and modifying groups of columns at that row level. You also choose how columns grow, how they shrink, and how they change. When building grid layouts, all content goes in the columns, and the hierarchy of Bootstrap grids goes from container to row to column to your content. On rare occasions, you might combine content and column, but just be aware that that can be unintended. You can have sort of unintended changes occur. Bootstrap include predefined classes for creating fast and responsive layouts, and they have 6 breakpoints at about 12 columns at each grid tier. So, for example, they have an alignment of 1 of 3 columns, 1 of 3 columns, 1 of 3 columns. You can see here, I have 1 of 3 columns, 1 of 3 columns, 1 of 3 columns. And just make sure to import all of the CSS rules as well. So you can see they've got a 1 of 3 column structure. And then they've also got one of 3 columns with a horizontal alignment as well. So if we change that to this container here, and they've got 1 of 3 columns as well. You can also do horizontal alignment. Remove the old layout and run that. So you can see you can use this row justify content star to change the alignment within each column. So instead of the column being default by center, you can align it so the column content is on the left, if it's on the right, and change the column alignment that way. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of column design and column structure. And you can kind of play around with it and see which column design and structure suits the content that you're currently working for. And then you have column wrapping. So if more than 12 columns are placed within a single row, each group of extra columns will be kind of one unit and then wrap onto a new line. So for example, we take out this old structure. So you can see there's a column 9 here, and then you've got this column 4, and then since 9 plus 4 is 13, this breaks the 12 grid structure, so that extra column structure will get pushed onto a new line. So if you run that, yeah, so you've got this column structure, which is 9, the next column structure is 4, but that doesn't fit with the grid structure, so it'll use the 9, and then the 4 gets wrapped onto a new line as one unit, basically, and the other columns then will follow along the new line. So column breaks are another thing. So breaking columns into a new line requires a small hack. So you need to add an element width 100% wherever you want to wrap your columns onto a new line. This is good for kind of multiple rows, but not every implementation has that. So for example, if we were to add this column structure here, and you set the class width to 100, you can see that this width 100 will force the columns to break it into a new line, even though it's using a 6 column here and a 3 column here as well for small widths. You can do the same for like different column number sizes. So if we click here and paste the column small, you can see you can have the same structure but a little bit wider layout. So you can, there's a lot of flexibility with the layouts that you have, especially if you're using the with the 100% structure as well. Another thing you can do with Bootstrap grids is reordering and using the order class. So the order class is good for controlling the visual order of your content. So these classes are responsive, so you can set the order by breakpoint. For example, like order 1, order medium 2, and you can do that for all 6 grid tiers. So for example, if we use this grid structure here, you can see. So you can have different orders for that, and you just click run. So you can see first in DOM, there's no order applied. Then you've got the second column. Even though it's the second column written, we've written order 5, so that has a larger order number. And then the third column, even though it's the third column, we set it as the order of 1. So you can see it took the no order first, and then it took the smaller order number, and then it took the larger order number. There's also responsive order 1, order last, order first that change the order of an element by using order -1 and order 6. And these classes can be intermixed with the number order and then the number that you need. So for example, if we use this code structure here, we have the container row, and then you've got first in DOM, but we've labeled it order last, second in DOM, and we've labeled it unordered, and then you've got third in DOM, ordered first, and this is the order that it follows. So it follows the one that's using order first, and then it's using the unordered one here, so one without the order attribute, and then we've got the order last as the order last class. So you can use the order to kind of reorder your columns as well, and you can do that with the responsive design layout as well. Another thing you can do is offsetting columns. So you can offset grid columns in 2 ways. You can have the responsive offset grid class, and then grid classes on your margin utilities as well. So you can move columns to the right using the offset medium class, and then these classes increase the margin of a column by a certain amount of columns. So for example, offset medium 4 moves the column medium over 4 columns. So just to show you how that works. So you've got the container, and then you've got the column medium 4, and then you've got the medium 4 column offset as well. So that will basically offset the 2 columns, even though they're going to be beside each other. There's going to be spaced out between them. Same with this one. There'll be 2 columns, but they'll be spaced out, and same with this one. There'll be 2 columns. Well, there'll be 1 column that's going to be set to the middle. So if we run that, so you can see the first 2 columns here offset by 4. And you can see the second 2 columns here offset by 3. Then you've got the 6-3 mid offset that we set off by 3 as well. And in addition to column clearing at responsive breakpoints, you may need to reset offsets as well. So if you want to reset your offsets, if you follow this code here, and then click run. So you can see the column offset is have been reset at each class level as well. So if you use flexblocks in the version 4 version of Bootstrap, you can use margin utilities like margin auto to force columns that are normally beside each other to move away from each other. So for example, in this code here, so you can see we've got the MS auto and we've got MS medium auto as well. So you can see these 2 columns would normally be beside each other, but there's some spacing between them. And you can see in this one as well, there's these 2 columns will be beside each other, but then there's spacing between them as well. And then you've got spacing in between these ones as well. You've got standalone class columns as well that you can use, and that can be used outside of a row to give an element a specific width. So whenever column classes are used as a non-direct item in the row, the padding it doesn't get carried forward. So for example, in this example here, so you can see with that, we've given this column a specific width. The first column is given a width of 25%, and you can see it's taking up 25% of the screen. And then we've given this column a certain width as well. We've given it another width of 74% above the small medium breaking point. So you can use those classes together to create responsive floating images. So if you wrap the image in a clear fix wrapper to clear the float if the text is shorter. So for example, so if we use this code here and say we add an image, you can see that the image and the text, they float left to the text floats left to the image. And this kind of makes it easier for to add images throughout your text, and then that way people can read your text a lot easier. You just want to make sure you use the clear fix wrapper to clear the float if the text is a little bit shorter. So for example, if you would add more text, on that, you can see the text is a little bit more than the image, so it clears the flex. So it clears the flex and then it goes back to full width. So it kind of floats nicely wrapped around the image that we've set as well. So it's a really good kind of placeholder thing to do that as well. So gutters are basically the padding between your columns, and they're used to space your content and align your content responsively within the Bootstrap grid system. The way they work is that there's basically gaps between your column content created by, padding, so padding left, padding right, and each column, and use the negative margin to offset that at the start and end of each row to align your content. So gutters start at like 24 pixels wide, and this allows you to match your grid to the padding and margin scale, and they can be responsively adjusted. So you can use breakpoint specific gutter classes to modify horizontal gutters, vertical gutters, and all kinds of gutters. So for example, horizontal gutters, they use the .gx class. So if we get rid of this, so .gx, and then whatever the number is, they use that class to kind of control the horizontal gutter widths, and the container or container fluid parent may need to be adjusted if larger gutters are used to avoid kind of, you might get overflow basically, so you may need to adjust the parent classes. So using a matching padding utility, for example, will help. So for example, if we use this bit of code here, and you can see there is all of this here. And you've got the row with the gutter width here, and you just click run. And you can see there's a gutter width now of 5 pixels between the columns. Another solution would be to wrap the row with overflow hidden. So this row here, if you put it in a container class that says overflow hidden, to kind of help that as well, you'll get the same result. If you run that, you can see you get the same result as well. So that's one way to kind of use vertical glass gutters. That's obviously with the horizontal vertical gutter width as well. The other one then is vertical gutters. So vertical gutters use this line to refer to vertical gutters. So that's vertical gutter width and then whatever number it is, and they're used to kind of control the vertical gutter widths. So like horizontal gutters, the vertical gutters can cause some overflow before the row at the end of the paragraph. So you would need to wrap the row around with overflow hidden class. For example, if we add this row here, you can see between the two columns there's that vertical gutter width as well, set to 5. And then you've got the overflow hidden as well, so you don't have to worry about the classes being hidden or anything like that. So this line here, so is the horizontal and vertical gutters. That's what you'd use to denote them. And these classes can be used to control the horizontal gutter widths and the row gutter widths as well. So for example, if you wanted to use a smaller gutter width, you won't actually need to use the overflow class. So if we get rid of that and type in, so you can see we've got gutter width of 2. If you run that, you can see there's a much smaller gutter width between each of the columns, and we don't need to use the overflow hidden to worry about sort of the space being used up. And then gutter classes can also be added to row columns. So in this example, if we get rid of this, you can see we've added the class up to the column, and we've added the rows up to the column as well, and we've got the several 10 sort of row column layout as well. If we run that, there you go. So you can see that you can use gutter classes to responsively lay out the rows and columns. So it changes the gutter width depending on the responsive or the viewpoint that the row and gutters currently are in. You can also choose to have no gutters. So the gutters between columns in Bootstrap's predefined grids can be removed with the .g-0, and this removes the negative margins from the row and the horizontal padding from all sort of immediate columns within the parents. So if you want them to have no gap at all and you want it to be sort of edge to edge, then you would drop the parent container or the container fluid. So in practice, this is how it will kind of look. We can add it to above here. So we see we set the gutter width to 0, so that's not going to have any kind of padding at all. There we go. So we've got the different gutter widths here. We've set the gutter widths to 0. So there's no kind of section in that either. You can change the gutters. So classes are built from the gutter SAS map, which inherited from the spacer SAS map. So similar to how you wanted to change the width of all of the breakpoints, you would just look for the gutters attribute in the SAS map, and then just change the spacer values here. So you can decide, how you want to do that kind of layout as well. You can also use Bootstrap to change the colors as well. So Bootstrap colors, they have a handful of color utility classes to support styling for links with hover states as well. So for example, You can have the text colors. These text colors here. So you can see the text primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, light, dark, all of those are predefined color states. And if you click run, you can see what those color states are. So contextual classes work with anchors as well, and they provide hover and focus states. But dot text white and dot text muted has no link styling. So it's just the rest of the colors that you have as well. Similar to contextual color states, you can also set the background color of any element to any kind of contextual class, and then anchor components will darken over hover. So just like the text classes, background utilities do not set colors. So in some cases, you'll need to use the text utility as well. So for example, if we use some of these classes, you can see we've got different background colors as well. And again, so similar to the text color, contextual text color, you can set the background images depending on the contextual class. So it is a bit limited, just if you do not want to set the color. So you'll need to use the dot text hyphen asterisk utility to do that. You can also, so enable gradient is set to true, but you'll also be able to use dot background gradient utility classes. If you wanted to. To use both the colors and the contextual classes at the same time, it would look something like this. So if we take out all of that, so you can see we've got container background primary, which was one of the original background colors with the text white. Then all we need to do is type in the actual text. Use that font styling and that background style, color styling to the text that we wanted. So it's different to how you want to do different things as well. If we run that, you can see we've got the different background colors with the different styling. So we didn't need to set the actual background colors ourselves or the text styling ourselves. That was already predefined within the CSS rules for Bootstrap. And all we need to do is just use the contextual classes and do it that way and have it mirrored that way as well. On top of this is kind of using Bootstrap Alert. So Bootstrap Alerts provides an easy way to kind of create predefined alert messages. So for example, these alert messages are already predefined with Bootstrap. You don't need to go ahead and define anything yourself. You just need to apply those alerts to the code that you have. So you've got the danger, warning, success, and primary. So we didn't need to set the styling for all of those. Those stylings are already done for us. And you can see these are kind of warning boxes as well and what they're used for. So you can use the danger box to potentially indicate a dangerous action or a negative action, and the warning will give the association that this warning might need attention. Then you've got the success alert box, and you've got the primary alert box to kind of indicate an important reaction. And again, so these are kind of pre-designed alerts for you, and you don't need to worry about that either, doing it yourself. Bootstrap also has a set of predefined buttons that you can use. So they have custom button styles for actions in like forums, dialogues, and they've also got multiple sizes, states as well that they support. So they have each their own button styles, and they have their own sort of semantic purpose. So for example, their button styling class is all just here. So yeah, you can see the different button styles that they have. They're similar to the styling that they have for their background colors and fonts and things like that. So they've got primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info, light and dark, things like that. Um, and they're already pre-styled for you. And they all have their own kind of hover states as well. So it's pretty good if you wanted to kind of have your own kind of button link as well. You can use the um, examples that they have. So they use color to add meaning to, and it only provides a visual indication. It's not going to be, it doesn't use any kind of assisting technologies or anything like that. Um, and then you would just need to add your link as well, just yourself, just with the link button here. The button tags is using the .btn classes, and they're used to be used with the button element. But you can also use these elements on the A link as well, the A attribute, and then linking them to use them in trigger in page functionality like collapsing content rather than linking to new pages or sections. So these pages should be given a role button to convey that purpose for assistive technology. So for example, section here, and then if you run that, you can see you've got the different links as well, whether you want input, button, link, all of that. In need of a button, but not if you want a button but you don't want the background colors, you can replace the modifier with classes with BTN outline to give you a button that's not so color heavy but does have some color to it. So for example, if we use this code here, so you can see if we've got the button class here, the BTN class here as well, but we've added a modifier called BTN outline. If you run that, you can see the other set of buttons that we have, but only showing the outline of the button. So you've got different sort of styling options when it comes to the buttons and different use cases as well. So it's up to you how you want to use those. You can also use different button sizing. So if you want larger or smaller buttons, add the BTN large or SM or large or SM for modifiers. So again, if you take all this out, so you can say we've got the BTN class, then we've got BTN large and BTN small. If we go to the smaller buttons, yeah, so BTN large and BTN small, and you can see the different buttons that we have with larger buttons and smaller buttons. So in terms of styling, you don't need to style anything yourself or configure. You just need to type in the type of button styling that you want, whether that's the primary styling, if it's a large button, things like that. And then you can sort of decide how you want to do those kind of button stylings as well. So it's a bit flexible in that way. So you do have some control over the styling, but it's all kind of predefined for you as well using their kind of grid system and their flex system. There's not a lot that you can do with it, but they have lots of options. Like can do with it custom to customize it, but they have a lot of options for you to pick from as well. You can also create block level buttons, so essentially buttons that span the full width of a page by adding the BTN block tag. So you can see we've got BTN primary, so that's using the primary colors in large, and we want it block. And then we've got the secondary colors, and maybe we'll change that to small, so you can see. And again, BTN block will span it the full width. You can have block buttons like that as well. One thing to make note of is the states of a button. So essentially, is the button sort of in an active state? If it's in a hover state, it'll show different styling and different looks of it as well. So the active state buttons will kind of appear with a darker background, darker border. So like, for example, whenever I click into it, you can see that that's in the active state and it's slightly darker, and you can tell that it's in a different state, and it kind of notifies the user that it's in a different state as well. So it's a really good sort of user experience kind of feature to have. And then it's the same with the hover. So if I hover over the button, it changes state, so it's like a hover state as well. Um, that all becomes adds predetermined to with the style classes that you add as well. Um, you can make buttons look inactive by adding the disabled Boolean attribute to any button element. If we take this button element out and add this, you can see that these buttons are disabled. So this kind of removes the functionality as well. So the buttons using the disabled element behave a bit different. Anything that's linked with the A tag, it doesn't support the disabled attribute, so you have to add the disabled class to make it visually appear disabled to put people off from clicking onto it. Some styles are include to just disable all pointer events, disabled all pointer events on anchor buttons, and disabled buttons should include the aria disabled equals true attribute to indicate that the state of the element to assistive technologies as well. So for example, it would look something like this if you're using the disabled element. And it stops you from actually clicking onto the buttons as well. Other things you can do are toggle states. So add the toggle button, toggle to toggles a button's active state. So if we add a line like this and run that, we've got a single toggle, and you can see that you can manually add the active class as well. And you can see the single toggle being active as well. Bootstrap's button style can also be applied to other elements like the label to provide a checkbox or radio style button toggling. If you add the data-toggle equals button to a btn group containing those modified buttons to kind of enable their toggling behavior with JavaScript, you can create input buttons within your own buttons. And the check state is for the buttons is only uploaded via a click event. So if you use another method to update the input, like for example, input type reset, or by manually applying the input's check property, you'll need to toggle active and then label manually as well. So for example, if you run that, you can see you've got the check button as well. So it's a checkbox that kind of acts as a button as well. So you can use those button stylings for that. There's different stylings you can add to it. So for example, this one here, this is the radio, active radio styling. So you've got radio and radio here. So that you can use it for checked buttons, or you can use it for radio buttons as well. So there's a lot you can do with Bootstrap. There's different examples. Another thing to mention is that there's loads of themes that you can already get with Bootstrap. So you can build your own sort of Bootstrap theme, but you can also just go online and look for themes that Bootstrap already have. So if you go into Bootstrap's website, this is their themes.getbootstrap.com. You can see there's themes built or reviewed by Bootstrap creators. And you can scroll through and see which theme that you like. And they've got a whole bunch of themes, usually paid, but they are very good in terms of what you want your theme to do. So for example, when you're on this page here, you can categorize by what function or what kind of theme that you want. If it's for a portfolio or blog, if it's e-commerce or retail, you would just click one of the categories and you can see all the different themes that they have. You can click into each of the themes. And the good thing about all of these themes is that you can give it a live preview. So if you click on live preview, this is essentially a theme mode. So it'll show you what kind of structures you have. So for example, there's a one column and a sidebar, which is great for some blogs. You can have the blog content here. And then you've got the sidebar content here. And the nav bar will kind of show you different things that they have, so all their different components. So this is what their buttons look like. And you can see all the button groups, the disable buttons, checkbox radio buttons, the block buttons, what that looks like. The other things that they have, like their forms, this is what their forms look like, with all the font sizing and things like that. With the home page, you can decide if you want the 3-column layout. So this is their 3-column layout. Do you want maybe the full width layout as well? So you can see this kind of full width. So that's got none of the padding or anything like that we've seen earlier. And then you can give different posts as well. So if you want, how do their images look? How do their video posts look? That's all kind of predefined for you. So you can go through each of their themes, see which ones you like best, and just pay for a theme that you like. And that saves you from having to code your own kind of Bootstrap theme. You can if you want to, but if not, you do have different things to do as well. You can go onto their individual pages, so sometimes they'll have pre-designed pages as well and see what that looks like. And the other good thing is that you can also switch between desktop or mobile, and then you can see what their responsive pages are like. So are their buttons responsive? Are the carousels responsive? Is their menu responsive? Are their column structures responsive? Things like that. There's different licenses you can have. So standard license, multi-license, and extended license. So standard license will give you it for one single product, as in you can only use it on one website. And then the multi-site license, you can use it on an unlimited amount of websites. So if you know you want to use this theme on more websites, then maybe the multi-site license will be better. Obviously, there's a bit of a price difference, so you need to look at what your own budget is and what you actually need the theme for. But once you've selected something, you just click add to cart and just proceed to checkout as normal. And just type in your billing details and things like that. Bootstrap themes are really good. They have really good reviews. Their average rating is between 4.9 out of 5. They'll give you free updates once you've purchased a theme, but they also have 100% money back guarantee. So if you try out one of the themes, even after you've previewed it, but you bought it and you've tried it and you actually don't like it, you can get your money back as well, hassle-free. They also include up to 6 months of support when you buy a theme as well. So in the beginning, if you're just getting starting out, if there's any issues, you can always contact their support and have any issues resolved, basically. But every single theme that you can buy on their website is reviewed by the Bootstrap team. So you know that at least what you're getting is well-designed, well-coded, responsive, and a really popular design as well. And the good thing is that they also come with a whole bunch of tools as well. If you go into Bootstrap's website and then go into the guide, it'll show you how to set up for local development, how to actually run your theme, which files are source compiled and which files are static, and how to kind of integrate with different kind of frameworks as well. So yeah, different things that you can do with Bootstrap. It is definitely an option for you if you want to get involved. But yeah, definitely check it out. Bootstrap 5 is currently the most updated version, but they do have availability for the versions below that if you were to use, like, for example, a different older version of the browser.